This is All India Radio, Power of Listening. Under this series, tonight we take you on a journey to the world of yet another magnificent facet of the traditional Indian knowledge systems. I'm Manoj Mainkar. In today's episode, we shall be focusing on the hydrology and water resources management systems in ancient India. The expert on the show is Dr. Pushpendra Kumar Singh, Professor, National Institute of Hydrology, Roorkee. Talking to him is Neha Tripathi, science communicator and writer. Stay tuned.
Namaskar. Water, the building block of life, a clean source of energy, a philosophical powerhouse, teaches us to be flexible and a potential mode of transport in itself. The role of hydraulic structures, including waterways management, becomes all the more important. In the 21st century, this management seems to be a cakewalk, but it has deep roots in our ancient knowledge system and literature. Ancient people were proficient in inland navigation, thus proving that rivers played an important part in the sustenance, development, and growth of mankind. To facilitate trade and transportation, many ancient cities and industrial towns were established along rivers and their tributaries. Although most of the foregone hydrologic knowledge is unexplored to the world. So today, we will try to bring to you some very interesting classic facts on hydraulic structures, including waterways management system in India. With me in studio is Dr. Pushpendra Kumar Singh. He is a scientist at Water Resources Systems Division in National Institute of Hydrology, Roorkee. He will bring the insights on the topic, ancient knowledge on different hydrological structures, including waterways management in India. Welcome to the show, Dr. Singh.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very useful and innovative talk.
We have a rich history of managing water, and you have highlighted in your research paper also, I want to refer to that as well, about the various ancient civilizations which were developed at places where water was required for agricultural and human needs, where water was readily available at that time, mainly in the vicinity of springs, lakes, rivers, seas, etc. This extends from civilization to the Vedas, and the references can be related to the current system. So let's begin the story right from the beginning.
Yeah, our ancient history is full of the advanced development in the field of water resources, or you can say water science. Indus Valley civilizations was contemporary to the Egyptian civilization, to the Mesopotamian civilization, to the Chinese civilization.
Yes.
But if you look at the developments in terms of the water science, then our Indus Valley civilization was at the apex.
Okay.
Agriculture was the main source of this socio-economic activity at that time.
Yes.
And we know that the Mohenjo-daro and Dholavira were the two major cities at that time. The people of Indus Valley civilizations were familiar with the advanced water management and drainage systems. In that period, I think everybody is knowing this great bath of Mohenjo-daro. So that great bath is an excellent example that the Harappan peoples were knowing about. At the same time, the Harappan peoples were well aware about the seasonal rainfall and flooding of the Indus Valley. I would like to mention that agriculture was practiced at large in that period, and the irrigation was being done by the canals.
Okay.
They were able to develop these water storage systems and low-cost water harvesting structures such as small check dams, bunds, and using the locally available material. We will take one example of Dholavira city, which is located between the ephemeral streams Mansar and Manahar. There we can have a series of check dams and storage reservoirs. The purpose was to basically see runoff is coming, taking a lot of sediments with it. So by constructing small check dams, they were able to reduce the velocity of the flow so that the sediments will get deposited and finally clean water will be stored in the reservoir. So now you can imagine what the knowledge about the hydraulics they were having at that time. Say
Yes.
it is more than, you can say, 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. Such type of knowledge was available there.
That's very interesting. The exposed brickwork of the surviving sites of Indus Valley civilization that you are referring to, and you have given us so many good references, they act as a mute witness to their expertise. That's what I can say. Do you want to give us some more such interesting references?
Yeah. I will explore a little bit more this Dholavira site of the Gujarat. Actually,
Sure.
you will be surprised to know that this city was ringed with a series of 16 large reservoirs, and that too having dimensions of 79-meter long and 7-meter deep. And many of these reservoirs were interconnected also. Actually, these reservoirs were accounting for the 10% of the total area of the Dholavira at that time. This ability to conserve every drop of water in the parched landscape itself tells a lot that what the level of the knowledge the people of Dholavira were having at that time. Recently, a rectangular step well have been found in Dholavira, more than 73-meter long and 29-meter wide and 10-meter deep, which itself is 3 times bigger than the Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro. So by these findings, actually, you can say that the level of expertise in the field of hydraulics and water resources management our ancient Indians were having 4,000 years ago.
These references that you are giving, the various ancient civilizations at that time, you have named a few as well. So there was any hydraulic linkages between these ancient civilizations of that period? Because I'm sure they will not be working separately and each civilization is working on its own. There must be some interlinkage between their hydraulic structures.
Yeah, of course. But as we discussed earlier, that actually this Indus Valley civilization was having uniqueness, particularly in terms of the water. The citizens of the Harappan civilization were known for their obsession with water. They prayed to the rivers every day and accorded the rivers a divine status and carrying that spirit even today. So, of course, if we compare the development in the water sciences as a whole to all the contemporary civilizations, then I think we will keep our Indus Valley civilization at the top. Let me give you some examples. We know that in Indus Valley civilizations, most of the houses were equipped with a private well. Almost all the houses had private wells with bath and toilet area lined with the standardized size burned bricks and draining into the soak pit or into the street drains. Indus Valley civilization is credited with the development of the flushing lavatories for the first time in the world.
That we are using even today.
Even today, actually, yeah, of course. And in the Egyptian civilization, actually, it was lacking flushing lavatories and sophisticated sewer and wastewater disposal system at that time. If we take the example of Mesopotamian civilization, of course, they were having well-constructed storm drainage and sanitary sewer systems. However, we know that in Indus Valley civilization, water supply was through wells also. Means vertical water supply.
Yes.
Whereas in the Mesopotamian, we don't have any mention of this system that there exists the vertical water supply system. Means supply of water through wells. 700 wells means vertical water supply system were there in the Mohenjo-daro. State-of-the-art toilet areas lined with the burnt bricks were there. We don't find these exemplary settlements in other civilization. So we can say that this Indus Valley civilization was unique as far as developments in the water sciences is concerned. Lothal is a place in Gujarat, in Sabarmati Basin. Actually, there we have a dockyard. That dockyard particularly is the world's oldest dockyard. Other than this Indus Valley civilization, take the example of Vedic era. In Vedic era also many hydraulic machines were there. That particular hydraulic machine was being used for irrigating the agricultural fields. And you might be surprised to know that that particular machine was first being used during the Indus Valley civilization and Vedic period, and thereafter that the technology went to the Chinese civilization and then Western countries. Of course, nowadays it is being called as Noria in the Western countries, but for the first time it was invented in Indus Valley civilization. So these are the some of the salient inventions you can credit to the Indus civilization as compared to the other civilizations.
So, the water quality, hydraulic machines, and other structures and nature based solutions for water resource management was also there that you are referring to. Can we discuss some of the shlokas references that we have in the Vedas to understand this better?
If you go for the Rig Veda, which is the ancient religious scripture, contains lot of references on the hydrologic cycle and associated processes. Jamati taye dhanur yodha arhadanam dharshde jehvaya vadhat. This is verse number 872.4 of the Rig Veda says that atmospheric air gets heated due to sun. Then this heat reaches the earth and converts the humidity into vapor and collect it as clouds, which is the cause of the rain and food grain production.
So, ultimately, it is referring to agriculture, of course. Use of water in agriculture.
Rig Veda further says in verse number 132.0, it mentions that water is never stationary, but it continuously gets evaporated. Of course, nowadays in our textbooks we are reading the hydrologic cycle. We are thinking that these concepts have been given by our Western scientists. But long ago we were having complete knowledge of this hydrologic cycle. Further, I would like to mention the Atharvaveda also. According to the Atharvaveda, I'm mentioning verse 5.2. It says that the sun rays are the main cause of rain and evaporation, as was mentioned in the Rig Veda with some more details. So the verse is like this. Amurya upsure ya virga surya sah tano hinvant dharam. Here I would also like to give the example of the Yajurveda. The Yajurveda explains the process of water movement from clouds to the earth and its flow through channels and storages into oceans, and further, of course, evaporation. Water cycle or hydrologic cycle was completely defined with their components 4,000 years ago right from now. So we can see that our Vedas are full of knowledge as far as water sciences is concerned, and moreover, not only the hydrologic cycle. In those days, we have many references of the irrigation through canals, irrigation through many hydraulic machines.
This is really thought-provoking that the Vedic people knew about this water cycle, hydrological cycle and all. And we also know that rain is and was the only source to replenish water in rivers to provide clean and safe drinking water for maybe agriculture and everything. In Rig Veda, we even find references to Kulle canals, the canal system that you are referring to, which is dug to divert water from the river for irrigation to the fields, as you have mentioned.
Yeah.
So if you can share some more references related to this, because in Mahabharata also we get the mention of Kulya, and in Mahabhashya of Patanjali the same word is found. So how this Kulya canal system was at that time?
There are many references of collecting water in the Rig Veda, particularly collecting water from hilly areas and carrying it to our agricultural fields, to our settlements, through the canals. In Rig Veda, verse 8, 3.10, there is a mention of the construction of the canal. Nowadays we call engineer, there it is ribhus. This word is particularly used for the persons who were engaged in the construction of the canal. In Rig Veda, verse 10, 93.12 and 10, 101.7 has a mention of Asmasakra.
What's that, sir?
That is a wheel made of stones.
Okay.
The water was being raised with the help of that wheel, which was tightened through a leather rope or strap, you can say like that. At the same time, there is one more word used for this water lifting device, and that is Ghat Yantra, a drum shaped wheel actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that was also tightened through a rope and pulley, and that was being used for lifting water from our wells, from the ponds for irrigation purposes. The Western scholars are agree that this Noria or Asmasakra or Udghatana, this particular hydraulic machine was invented in Indus Valley civilization or during the Vedic period. And later on, the technology was propagated to the Chinese civilization 350 BCE and thereafter to the Western culture. There is a reference in Mahabharata also. The verse 10, 184.15 explains the water uptake process by the plants, and rainfall occurs in just 4 months. Kiskinda Kand of the Ramayana, chapter number 28. Many verses are there, those are dealing with this hydrologic cycle particularly. Verse number 3 mentions the formation of clouds, and verse number 46 in this Kiskinda Kand mentions overflowing of the river due to heavy rains in the rainy season. And many other verses are there in this Kiskinda Kand. Those explains the process of cloud transportation laden with the water and elevational effects of the mountains on the whole process of this transportation.
What more contribution you can highlight from Varamir's Brihat Samhita on hydrology in ancient times?
There we have 33 chapters, and you will be surprised to know that there are 10 chapters devoted to the meteorology. There is one chapter 55, Dakar Galam. This whole chapter is dedicated to the groundwater. Chapter number 55 completely discusses about this groundwater and discusses about the geographical pointers such as plants, reptiles and insects and many other soil markers to explore, better to say, occurrence and distribution of the groundwater. A particular variety of plants is there, so there will be more groundwater or less groundwater. So actually pointers
depending on the need of the water by the plant, we can identify.
On that basis, actually they were able to know the groundwater occurrence and distribution. One more thing I would like to mention here, they were also using bioindicators.
Okay.
Plant species for estimating the occurrence and distribution of the groundwater, and many other such as morphologic and physiographic features they were also using to as an indicator to explore the distribution and occurrence of the groundwater. So this Brihat Samhita actually is a great compilation of the meteorology as well as water sciences. Varahamihir has discussed very nicely. Varahamihir can be credited as the earliest hydrologist of the world.
Okay. Mauryan Empire is also credited for the first hydraulic civilization characterized by construction of dams with spillovers, reservoirs and the canals and channels that we are discussing. So with the development of instrumentation and the first observation station was set up during this Mauryan period only in the 4th century BC. So how do you see their contribution to the ancient knowledge system on hydraulic structures including waterways management?
A lot of developments during the Mauryan Empire actually. It was the Mauryan period only we started the measurement of the rainfall. You can explore this in Arthashastra written by Chanakya. This Mauryan period is also credited with the development of the first observatory. Nowadays we call it rain gauge, but at that time actually we were calling it Varshaman. It was 24 angulas, equivalent to 18 inch. This Varshaman or rain gauge is kept in front of a store, warehouse, and there was a special officer for this to collect the data, and that officer was supposed to be from the agriculture department. Just I am quoting one example from the Arthashastra. The quantity of rain that falls in the country of Jangla means desert, is 16 dronas. Dronas in weight unit at that time. Half as much in Anupanam, moist regions, as the regions which are fit for agriculture. Desavapanam, 13.5 dronas in the region of Asmakas, means Maharashtra. 23 dronas in Avanti, probably Malwa, and immense quantity in western regions, area of Konkan, the borders of Himalayas, the countries where water channels are made for use in agriculture. So during the Mauryan period, we were having the complete information about the rainfall and rainfall distribution also. So the rain gauge Of course, now we are having the advanced rain gauges, but in those periods we were having the instrument to measure the rainfall. This Mauryan Empire is also called as first hydraulic civilization. Why the hydraulic civilization? Because it is characterized by the construction of dams with spillways, pines and ahars, many lakes, and water pricing system also. So this pine and ahar system is an excellent example of the hydraulic structure, and you will be surprised to know that nowadays also we are using it in the South Bihar actually. This pine, you can say it is a channel to collect water from the river, and ahars are the catchments with the embankments in three sides to store rainwater.
Okay.
This pine ahar system, it works in many ways. First, it will conserve water. At the same time, during flooding conditions, it will work as a flood mitigation system also, because it will be taking off the excess water from the river. This pine ahar system is very useful even nowadays, and you will be surprised to know the government of Bihar has recently taken initiative to rejuvenate these systems under the Jal Jeevan Haryali program. So the technique which was being used long back 300 to 400 BCE, still that technique is being used nowadays in the same part of the country. So that was a good contribution from the Mauryan Empire in the field of hydraulic structure. I think you have visited this Sanchi site.
Many
Okay.
of us must
Yeah,
have seen.
this is a very famous Buddhist site, Sanchi. That region has been investigated largely by the Western academicians, researchers. There they found 16 reservoir complex. And you will be surprised to know that the length of those reservoirs was varying from 80 meter to 1400 meter. And the depth was found varying from 1 meter to 6 meter. And more surprisingly, actually these structures were equipped with the spillways also. So might be that these structures, these reservoirs would have been constructed to supply water for paddy crop. Similar type of structures with the spillways have been found in one place, that is in Gujarat, Devni Mori area. These reservoirs were designed in such a way that they were able to collect to store the water coming from the upstream for a particular amount of the rainfall. So a concept of water balance actually, that would have been taken into consideration while these structures would have been designed. In Arthashastra, it is mentioned that he, means the king, it was the duty of the king to construct reservoirs filled with water, either perennial or drawn from other sources. He will also construct roads and navigation systems. And there were specialized officers for superintending the rivers, inspecting the gates through which the water will be released to the canals to have equal supply for different purposes for agriculture. Nowadays even we are using sluice gates in our irrigation system.
Yes. Similarly, was there any scenario of wastewater management and drainage system also in the ancient times? Do the Vedas relate to this aspect as well?
See, there are many references of the wastewater management systems in our Vedas also, and during the Indus Valley civilization. Indus Valley civilization was the first to have the proper wastewater treatment systems in the world at that time. Harappa and Mohenjo-daro included the world's first urban sanitation system. As far as this wastewater treatment is concerned, you might be surprised to know that all the household wastewater will be collected through pipes into small sumps for settlement purpose only. So all the heavy particles, those will be settled in that sump. This we can call it primary wastewater treatment, and thereafter it will be taken into other drainage channels, bigger channel. So we can say that the treatment system was in place during Indus Valley civilization. Yeah.
In the end, if you can help us understand how we have conserved and utilized the ancient knowledge of hydraulic structures, including waterways, and how things have been modified today.
Of course, we were having rich knowledge of the different water technologies, better to say. This wastewater treatment and sanitation, I think you might be knowing the recent campaign of our government, National Mission on Clean Ganga. I think this is also an example that we are not forgetting to respect our rivers, cleaning our rivers. Secondly, I think for water management, I think you might be knowing about this Jal Shakti Abhiyan. This campaign was the conservation of the water management in rural parts of the country. Many ponds were constructed, check dams, and for the purpose was to conserve the water for agricultural purposes. So I think this is also an example that we learned from our ancient history and moving ahead. This interlinking of rivers is also one such an example to transport water to the regions, those are water deficit regions.
There are various inland national waterways in India and identified for the purpose of water transport and all, and there are 13 national waterways are operational for shipping and navigation. Do you anyways think that these have taken inspiration from these historical references that we have discussed today?
Yeah, I think you rightly mentioned. Actually, see, whatever we are progressing today, actually we have our footprints in long back. So we have discussed that we were having their navigation system in place, whether it is Dholavira or Lothal, the oldest dockyard, whether it is the canal found in excavation by ASI in the modern period. So we were having the navigation system in place, and I think we are getting inspiration from our rich Indian technologies. However, there is a further need to go for more and more research in this field also, so that we will be able to explore some new things in this water resources management and hydrological aspects in our ancient times. So thank you a lot for inviting me to the studio.
Thank you so much.
Hydrology and water resources management systems in ancient India. You heard the 24th episode of our all-new series on traditional Indian knowledge systems, Power of Listening. The expert on the show was Dr. Pushpendra Kumar Singh, Professor, National Institute of Hydrology, Roorkee. Talking to him was Neha Tripathi, science communicator and writer. We hope you enjoyed it. This series has been conceptualized by Shashi Shekhar Vempati, CEO Prasar Bharati, and produced by Vinod Kumar. Special thanks to Amol Parth and Randhir Thakur for their contributions. This episode is also available on our official YouTube channel, Akashvani AIR. Be there on the 18th of March, same time, same frequencies. This is Manoj Mainkar signing off from Delhi. Bye for now.